Quite simply, there are no more moves to be made in the New York Jets organization for this season. They are who they are. They have shown us who they are through 8 games. They have no margin of error for the rest of the season. Zero margin of error. I don't see this being the players on their team in the future.
Even Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know. They have tried pretty much everything.
The New York Jets are a total mess right now, stuck in one of the longest losing streaks of Aaron Rodgers' career. They hoped firing coach Robert Saleh would turn things around, but that didn't work. They also thought trading for star receiver Davante Adams would help, but they're still winless with him on the team. And to make matters worse, they just lost to one of the worst teams in the NFL. What's going on, everybody? As a Dallas Cowboys fan, I know all too well the feeling of disappointment and pain. I mean, how many times have we seen this meme with the Cowboys cycle? The funny thing is, this year we don't even have that initial optimism. So maybe, just maybe, this will be our year. But enough about me, let's talk about the New York Jets. No team in the NFL had higher expectations coming into this season than the Jets. Throughout the offseason, I was hyping them up. With Aaron Rodgers coming in, it was a ton of excitement. On paper, this was the best quarterback they'd had since the Chad Pennington days. Unless, of course, you count Mark Sanchez, but I wouldn't. Finally, the Jets had a QB who could make all the throws they needed. The plan seemed simple. You have Robert Saleh, a coach with a great track record of building top defenses, and on the defensive side, you've got stars like Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, one of the best defensive tackles in the league. The defense was going to be a powerhouse, and Rodgers was supposed to play the role of a game manager, just like Tom Brady did for the Buccaneers. The Jets didn't need the best defense in the league. They just needed Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy and do his part. Unfortunately, in year one, we barely got to see this dream combination in action. Rodgers tore his Achilles just 4 games into the season. The defense stayed strong though, ranking 12th in points allowed and 3rd in total yards. But with Zach Wilson under center, the offense just couldn't click. Fast forward to 2024 and there was hope again. Rodgers was making a full recovery and the Jets had spent the offseason addressing their issues. They focused heavily on the offensive line, knowing how important it was to protect Rodgers. They traded for Morgan Moses, signed Tyron Smith to a 1-year deal, and drafted Olai Fashanu as a future left tackle. They also brought in veteran backup quarterback Tyrod Taylor, just in case. On top of that, they added depth to the receiver corps, signing Mike Williams to a 1-year deal. I honestly thought the Jets had one of the best off seasons in the league. Rodgers had everything he needed to succeed, yet things got off to a weird start. The Jets lost to the San Francisco 49ers 32-19, then beat the Tennessee Titans 24-7, and followed that up with a solid win over the Patriots 24-3. At that point, it looked like they were back on track. But that was the last win we'd see from them, at least for now. After that, things fell apart. Against the Minnesota Vikings, Rodgers couldn't find an answer for Brian Flores' suffocating defense. He threw for 29 completions on 54 attempts, 2 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions. Following that loss, the Jets made the decision to fire Robert Saleh. Now, this was strange to me. The Jets had one of the best defenses in the league, yet Saleh took the fall. To this day, they're still ranked 6th in the NFL for team defense, but the blame fell on Saleh. The issue wasn't the defense. The problem was that Saleh was building his team around Zach Wilson. A lot of people were frustrated with the loss record under Saleh, but it's hard to win when your quarterback is so inconsistent. So they decided to promote their defensive coordinator to head coach, hoping that would turn things around. Spoiler, it didn't. The Jets played a little better against the Buffalo Bills, but despite a solid performance from Breece Hall, over 100 yards rushing and nearly 300 yards passing from Rodgers, they lost 23-20. At that point, they decided to make another move, trading for wide receiver Davante Adams. Now, I'm not sure this was the right move. On paper, adding Adams sounds great, but I've said it before, the Jets didn't really need more wide receivers. The real issue was team chemistry, not the lack of weapons. But I get it. They wanted to reunite Adams with Rodgers, and it didn't take much to pull off the trade. I just wonder if tweaking the offense so much is doing more harm than good. Jets fans were hoping the reunion of Rodgers and Adams would be the spark they needed, but so far, it hasn't paid off. Adams made his debut against the Steelers, and his thoughts on his new team were interesting.
A lot of these guys in here haven't been anywhere else where they've won and, have had that urgency that it takes in order to be a good team. So, this team being so talented on the, roster-wise, it's just a waste to have everybody out there and, to have a dead sideline like that. Breece catch a ball and go 60 and we can't feed off none of the energy, and those type of plays are supposed to be contagious for the rest of the team. So,
honestly, ripping into your new teammates just 1 game into playing with them, that's wild. But that's exactly what happened when the Jets got completely dominated by the Pittsburgh Steelers, losing 37-15. In this game, they made Russell Wilson look like the old Seattle Seahawks version of himself, and once again, the offense was an absolute mess. Aaron Rodgers threw 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. What's even crazier is how there's never any accountability from Rodgers. Take the Jets' loss to the Buffalo Bills, for example. Instead of standing up and saying, "I've got to be better," Rodgers actually called out one of his wide receivers, the guy he's supposed to be building chemistry with. It's a tough look when the leader of the team isn't owning up to his mistakes.
2 verticals, Allen's down the seam, Mike's down the red line. So I'm looking at Allen, he puts his hand up, 3 guys go with him, so I'm throwing a no look to the red line. And when I just peek my eyes back there, he's running an inbreaker. So it's got to be down the red line.
So then the Jets went ahead and traded for Aaron Rodgers' old buddy, Davante Adams. Now, on paper, it's a great addition, but honestly, I think it was kind of unnecessary. Still, a lot was riding on the Jets' game against the New England Patriots. They pulled out all the stops, making sure they were as close to full strength as possible. They finally got Hassan Reddick, who'd been holding out all season, back in the fold, hoping to make their already great defense even better. On the other side, you had the Patriots, who were in full rebuild mode. They were starting a rookie quarterback making just his 3rd career start, and their offense was a mess. They were dealing with a depleted wide receiver core, one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and an up-and-coming defense that wasn't enough to carry them. The team chemistry was off too, with reports all week about how bad things were going for them. Jared Mayo, one of their leaders, had this to say about the state of the team after their tough loss last week.
Disappointing game. We came out, we started fast. What I would say is, look, we're a soft football team across the board.
And then things took another turn. Bill Belichick, always the strategist, started taking shots at Jared Mayo after his comments. Mayo had been critical of the team's performance, and Belichick wasn't having it. The Patriots head coach has always been known for his no-nonsense approach, and when it comes to accountability, he wasn't about to let his own players air their frustrations publicly.
When you criticize your team publicly like that, it doesn't always go over well. Ultimately, I always felt like when the team played bad, that was my responsibility too.
And while I do agree with Belichick on this, you can't have your own players publicly throwing shade like that. He didn't stop there. Belichick kept going and his old assistant, Jared Mayo, not letting up. The tension was building, and you could feel the cracks in the Patriots' foundation getting wider. Belichick's all about accountability. He wasn't going to let his team forget it.
I'm kind of hurt for those guys because they call them soft. They're not soft. They were the best team in the league last year against the run.
Some fans were even speculating that Jared Mayo might get fired if the Patriots kept losing. And honestly, after seeing how things were going, it looked like the Patriots had no shot in this game. How could they? They were up against Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Davante Adams, Sauce Gardner, and Quinnen Williams. How do you even compete with that? Well, somehow the Patriots pulled off the win. It's honestly kind of insane. The way this game unfolded was so bizarre. Nothing went the Jets' way. It's like this meme says it all. The Patriots had no expectations, and the Jets had never had higher expectations. Yet, somehow, they both ended up with the same record after this game. Anything that could have gone wrong for the Jets did. For example, Christian Gonzalez completely shut down Davante Adams. And even with that, it wasn't like the Jets didn't have other weapons. You still have Garrett Wilson to deal with. Adams was targeted 4 times with Gonzalez on him, and he had 0 catches and 0 yards. When Gonzalez was asked about it, here's what he had to say.
We won, man. We won.
So far in his 2 games with the New York Jets, Davante Adams has had 15 targets, caught 7 passes for 84 yards, and most importantly, 0 wins. He's averaging just 3 receptions per game with a 43% catch rate and only 34 yards per game. That's not exactly the impact the Jets were hoping for. And when you look at their upcoming schedule, it's not exactly brutal, but there aren't a lot of easy wins on the horizon. In the next few weeks, they'll face the Houston Texans on Thursday Night Football, then take on the Arizona Cardinals, the Indianapolis Colts, who could be tough, especially if they start Joe Flacco, before squaring off against the Seahawks and Dolphins. At the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers has no more excuses. He's gotten everything he could have possibly asked for. The roster, the weapons, the help. Despite saying he doesn't have much control over the team's decisions, here's what he had to say after the game.
Yeah, I've been in the darkness. You gotta go in there, make peace with it.
Rodgers claims he doesn't have as much power in the team's decisions as people think. He's been saying that a lot lately, almost like he's trying to deflect some of the blame. But after everything that's happened this season, it's hard to ignore the fact that he's got the team he wanted. So at this point, the pressure's on him to deliver.
It's interesting the amount of power that people think that I have, which I don't.
At the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers got everything he wanted. He handpicked his offensive coordinator, but when that didn't work out, they promoted another guy he's comfortable with, Todd Downing, to take over play calling duties. They still lost. He had one of the best receiving corps in the NFL on paper, but when that wasn't enough, they traded for Davante Adams. Now he's got arguably the best wide receiver group in the league, plus a top 5 running back in Breece Hall. On top of that, his defense is ranked in the top 6 in the NFL. And yet, his division isn't even that tough. The Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins are solid teams, but neither has been at full strength this season. With all these pieces in place, Aaron Rodgers really has no one to blame but himself. But of course, he won't take responsibility. He'll keep pointing fingers at everyone around him, despite the Jets doing everything he's asked. Rodgers was supposed to have a Peyton Manning-like send-off with the Jets, much like Manning did with the Broncos or Brady with the Buccaneers. But instead, this is starting to look more like Joe Montana's time with the Chiefs or Donovan McNabb's stint with the Washington Commanders or Minnesota Vikings. So Jets fans, at this point, what's the solution to fixing this team? If the losses keep piling up, you could be looking at a top 5 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Maybe it's time to draft your future quarterback, Quinn Ewers, Sheeger Sanders, or even Cameron Ward. Why not draft a young QB, let him sit behind Rodgers for a year, and then hand him the reins? Let me know what you guys think the New York Jets should do moving forward. Do you think it's all on Aaron Rodgers, or do you see things differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, I'm your boy, Helmet to Helmet, signing off. Mick dropped. See you in the next upload.